Okay, question 17. So what we have here is we're actually preparing two different types of statements under marginal costing and absorption costing. I think it's important to highlight that under marginal costing, we recognize fixed costs as period costs. We do not, I repeat, we do not absorb fixed costs via the absorption method. That's why it's called marginal costing. Our focus, the truth is that this whole business here with marginal costing is really a decision-making tool. It's not a reporting tool, it's a decision-making tool. And we make decisions better when we exclude fixed costs because fixed costs typically are period costs. We might have dealt with them. So, in making better future decisions, it's best to ignore them. And you could it just to have good business engineering and just entirely ignore them altogether, if you like, and just really focus on the actual cost of the product, which is really the variable cost. And in other words, the marginal cost. Margin just means what's the cost of making an additional extra unit, and that's the variable cost in effect. I mean, sometimes there are some fixed costs that you need to, but that's not really these are sunk overheads that we've had from the beginning, if you like. So when we see that, that's what that really refers to. So let's jump in. The cost of making this is for each unit. So you need 3 kilograms at £5. That's 15. That's 2 hours, and therefore that's 8. That's 2 and 2, and that's 8, isn't it? So your total variable cost of making a unit is 16. Yes, 4. Sorry, forgive me. Oh yeah, what's going on? 2 times 2 is 4. So that's 15 plus 8 is 23. 23 plus 4 is 27. So that's £27. Okay, great stuff. So let's just walk through. Now, for absorption costing, this is important, this fixed overhead absorption rate, because all stock must include all the production fixed overheads. IAS 2 requires all costs, including fixed overheads, production costs, must be in the product. So for reporting purposes, we're going to be using absorption costing. So here, your fixed overhead is 120,000. Your budgeted production is 10,000 units. So your fixed overhead absorption rate is £12. Right? And we've just calculated that the marginal cost of making each unit is £27. So the total absorption cost, therefore, of one unit must be adding the two together, which is 39. So when I'm dealing with this one, I'll be looking at 39. Well, technically, but that's sort of the principle. So you made 10,000 units. The question here tells us that you sold 9,000 units. So when you think about it from your normal accounting, you're sort of saying sales of 9,000 units less your cost of sales, ultimately, isn't it? Your cost of sales would be, of course, your production of 10,000 units less your closing inventory of 1,000 units. So your cost of sales is still 9,000. You are still comparing the sale of 9,000 with the cost of 9,000, and that's what we're going to sort of work through and analyze here. So let's jump in. So it says you sell 9,000 units at £50 each. So that's 9,000 times 50. So that's 45 and 4 zeros. 450,000. The same would apply, of course, to the absorption cost. So in terms of production, remember you're producing on 10,000 units, but you do have closing inventory. So let's deal with this based on the 10,000 units for both, right? So we know that it costs you £15 a unit, doesn't it? So it's £15 a unit. We can clearly see it here. So therefore, 15 times 10,000 is 150,000, isn't it? Yes. And then I have 10,000 times, and the same thing applies here, 150,000. The same thing applies here, where your labor is 8, and you're talking about 10,000 units, so you have 80,000, don't you? You have 80,000. And then your variable costs here are 4, and here you have 4 times 10,000, so you have 40,000. You have 40,000. So I was very clear that with marginal costs, we do not consider fixed costs in our production. Marginal costs, fixed costs are a period cost. All of it is put through. all of it. So you have 120,000 here as your fixed cost. We do not. It isn't part of the process of finding out profit. Again, like I said, this is typically a decision-making tool, marginal costing. So it's not reporting, but that's it. Right. So what do I have? So I technically don't have any fixed costs being recognized here. Um, and then you have your closing inventory, of course, because this is marginal costing, you will value your closing inventory, of course, at the marginal cost, if you like, and that's £27 times the 1,000 units, right? Because you produced 10 and you have a closing inventory of 1 for you to have sold 9. So your closing inventory is 1,000 at 27. So that's 27,000, right? If you have that. But it's quite different here because with your um, absorption costing, what we have is the recognition of fixed costs in the process. So your fixed costs, of course, are 120,000. All of it's been recognized, and we are fully absorbing the the fixed cost within the product. Everything's being absorbed, and so we have 39 times 1,000, and that's 39,000. So what we now need to do is to add all these costs together, if you like, and get an answer here and do the same thing over here. And let's just do that very quickly. Or in effect, we're basically finding the cost of sales. So you can put cost of sales here, technically cost of sales, but but I wouldn't call it that. I'll just find it. So I have 150,000 plus 80,000 plus 40,000 minus 27,000. So I have here 243,000. So I basically added these three together and took away the 27. And then I do the same thing here. Remember that fixed costs are part of the process when it comes to absorption. So I have 150,000 plus 80,000 plus 40,000 plus 120,000 minus 39,000. And so I have here 351,000. And therefore my contribution here, I don't have any fixed cost here, of course. So my contribution here is the sales, 450 minus the 243. So 450,000 minus the 243, that gives you 207,000. And then take off your 120, and that gives you profit of 87. And then I do exactly the same thing here, where I have of the 450 minus the 351,000, and that gives you a contribution of 99,000, and therefore the same thing, therefore here a profit of 99,000. The real, then they ask us to reconcile the difference. So your marginal costing profit is 87,000, right? And really, the reason why we have this difference is because the inventory in absorption costing here, this fixed cost, all of this fixed cost is charged in this period, all of it. But some of this fixed cost of here is in the closing inventory. And the closing inventory, if you think about it, closing inventory shifts into the next period. So you have inventory with a fixed cost element that's not going through this year. It's escaped. It's managed to tag on to that inventory and move into the next period. So you have costs that are not showing in absorption costing because they're absorbed into the product. But all those costs are laid bare here in marginal costing, all of the 120,000, right? Remember, but what you have here is you have inventory, and your inventory, of course, here is that you have 1,000 you have 1,000 units of inventory, and you have your fixed overhead absorption situation here of £12, right? Because that's what the fixed overhead absorption rate is, £12 there. Really, in effect, I think that's kind of the the best way to sort of see it. The fact that you have £12 basically on all these units sort of moving into the next period that have been absorbed in that inventory. And so that's your 12,000, and that takes you to the 99,000 that you have there. And that's really how you look at that. Um, yeah, and pretty much it. I mean, because you're really still doing. This question says, oh, sorry, the fixed overhead absorption rate per hour. I found it per unit actually. So maybe actually, you know what? One second, let me just address that. You have 10,000 units times 2 hours. So basically, per hour, it's 120 over 10,000 units times um, the labor hours of two. So that's £6 per hour. It's the same thing. We're sort of saying it takes 2 hours. We're assigning 2 hours to every unit, to one unit. So whether I say 1,000 times 6 times 2, I'm still going to get 12. So you can see, I think it's better you've seen me do it both ways. The point here is that I have closing inventory that takes up £12,000 of those fixed costs in absorption costing, takes it away from my expense in this period. Thereby, because it takes it away, it gives you a higher profit of 99,000 as opposed to all of it going through that year under marginal costing. Well, it obviously means that the following year, your profits will be lower in absorption costing because you will have this additional cost turning up in opening inventory. Cool, great stuff. So this is a teaching tool, a teaching class, so which is why I've made this video slightly longer than normal, but hopefully it'll help you understand why there's a difference in the final profits of marginal costing versus absorption costing. Cool.